So looking through the order, you have your neuron drawn. Neuron man, thank you. If this is not done, it is your job to get this done. Some people came in and did this in my class today. It talks a little bit about how a neuron can innervate a muscle and so on. We did not do this yet. Please ignore that. We went through and did this out of the book. I abbreviated as I wrote, but we talked about the central versus the peripheral. The central is literally the brain and the spinal cord. 100 billion neurons are in the brain, and one neuron can receive messages from 10,000 other cells, simultaneously sending out 1,000 messages. Again, that is like a mom who's listening to 10,000 children while talking simultaneously to 1,000 and processing all of it perfectly. Your brain cells are pretty amazing. And then there's your brain, which is split into some parts. We talked about this again last year. Your main part, which is the thinking part, that's your cerebrum. That's your thinking. Remember how we said we thought about this guy as Sir Ibram, and he's very smart. And then there was Sarah with a bell, and she is really good at sports. This part back here is your coordination. This is where I found the worm in that dolphin's brain that died, and it had no coordination at all. And then finally the brain stem, which is all these little numbers are where those nerves come off that I just told you about, the cranial nerves, and there's 12 of them. They're coming off the brain stem. Your brain stem is very protected because it's doing like basic functions like breathing, heart beating, and things like that. So you wouldn't want to bump it. So it talks about that here. Sir Ibram is the thinking. The left side is more analytical, algebra, writing a research paper, figuring out a riddle. The right side is a little more they call it like being creative or the arts, spatial and visual. When you do geometry, or you are using the right side of your brain. If you're doing algebra, you are using the left side of your brain. And if you are a little more right-brained, maybe you're really good at music or art, or you might become an interior designer. Like you've just got a little bit more visual. The right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. The cerebellum is your coordination. And we did the back. Your peripheral nervous system are the side nerves. There's 43 total. 12 come out of your brain. We're going to mess with those in a lab. I have a couple different ones. We can redo the one we did last year if you want. And then there's 31 coming out of off your spine. Sensory, motor, and autonomic, this one right here, is stuff you can't control, like how fast your heart beats or your blood pressure. These things are involuntary. This right here is where you get parasympathetic and sympathetic responses. That's where that falls. Somatic you have control over. That's you deciding to write with a pencil. We're going to do this later. Look at this paper. We're going to draw an eye and an ear. I'm going to be a little fast in the eye. We're going to draw it from the side. Light rays would be coming into your eye. And hopefully this is review for most of you. There is a, let me start over. There's a little glass cleared, it's not glass, but a clear dome over the cover of your eye, which you can see really well in cats. What's that called? I just heard it. Cornea, thank you. When we do the eye dissection, you will cut the cornea off, and there's a little bit of fluid here. And that fluid is called aqueous humor. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Please stop talking, guys. And then you hit a hole. The pupil, which the hole can be larger or smaller depending on how much light you want to let in, isn't a thing. It's a hole. And if you weren't here last year, then this is new information, or maybe kind of new. That's a pupil. And you can make that hole bigger or smaller depending on whether or not you want to let light in. You do not have control over it. Your body decides if it wants to let light in or not. And it does that using a muscle that goes around the hole. And this is your only muscle where it's not blood red, but it's colorful because it helps you either survive or reproduce. In this case, it's reproducing. That is your iris. That is a muscle that is either going to contract and push this hole closed so you don't let a lot of light in, and that happens in a really bright space, or it's going to relax and open that up and it'll let more light in a really dark space. So as the light rays come in, they hit a lens in your eye. I'm going to show you, we have a lens lab and it's super fun. Your lens bends the light rays, and if everything is going well, those light rays will hit the back of your eye and converge right at the right place, which is exactly at the back of your eye. And the back of your eye is called the retina. You can just ignore the eye. It's almost ironic. Retina. Ignore that eye. Thank you. Retina, because a lot of people say retina. The juice in here, so when we cut the cornea off, you can like see that there's a hole. You can immediately feel when you touch the eye, the lens underneath. You'll cut the iris off and you'll put your finger in and pop that little lens out. Don't take it home. It'll smell up the whole neighborhood and it's carcinogenic. And then you've got to squeeze some goo out of here, and the goo is called vitreous humor, and it's viscous. It looks a little bit like clear jelly or egg white. You're welcome. So the light rays hit the back of your eye, and we've talked about this last year. They technically go to your brain upside down because the rays keep going. This is why in a microscope the images are also upside down. Chase, I'm about to give you the quiz on the eye just because you're not paying attention. And it goes up to your brain via the optic nerve, and that is one of the 12 cranial nerves that comes out of the brainstem. Is one of them's optic nerve, and you've also heard of the vagus nerve as one of them. There's a bunch. There's an auditory nerve coming out of your ear. There's 12. On the back of your eyeball, you have two types of cells, rod and cone. Cone is for color, and rod cells are for seeing black and white.
What would you need to see black and white?
And seeing in the dark. We'll do this fast. There's 3 sections to the ear. There's this section, outer. There's this section, middle. And there's this section, inner. I'm doing this because we're doing a senses thing, and I want to make sure I get all this out. There's only 2 parts in the outer ear, 3 parts in the middle ear, and 2 parts in the inner ear that you'll need to know. This is what the ear will look like on the test. The outer ear includes the ear canal and the eardrum. That's it. Sound comes in as a vibration, and it causes this to vibrate. My voice right now is just a vibration. Your brain turns it into what you hear. We're sending weird echolocations into the air that our brain picks up and turns into sounds, basically. Then there are 3 bones in the middle ear. They're all touching, but I'm not going to draw them touching. I'll try. Hammer does not shaped quite like that. Anvil. Okay, stirrup. It's the worst drawings ever. Those are the 3 middle ear parts. So the vibration goes through those 3 bones. If you have hearing loss because of one of these bones, they can actually do surgery and fix that. If you have hearing loss because of something else, it might not be fixable. The inner ear has a little snail shell called the cochlea. Coke like a soda, Leah like a person named Leah, spelled Cochlea. Just makes a K sound. This is cochlea, and that is not Coachella.
What was the last one called?
If you put Coachella down on the test, stirrup, And there are these little tiny hairs in here, and we're going to mess with these later to see if you have hearing loss. I absolutely do. The older you get, the more hearing loss you have. These are the receptor cells. These are the sensory neurons that would pick up sound. They vibrate, but if you listen to something loud, you crush it, and it breaks, and it will not replace itself. So in your lifetime, every single time you hear something really loud, you break these little hairs and they don't get fixed ever. So you want to avoid taking your AirPods and jamming them into your ears and blasting music to the point where you can't hear anything. I am all talk because I run, and I don't want to hear that I'm exercising because it makes it harder. So I have to listen to my music too loud. Thankfully, my watch and my phone tell me all the time, nope, turn it down. And I listen because I know that that actually will happen. You can tell how old somebody is by what they can and can't hear. So these are the little receptor cells. So that's part one, is the cochlea. And then it gets sent to the brain for analysis via the auditory nerve. Auditory, like audio equipment, means hearing. Auditory nerve. Okay, I'm done with that. You guys are going to do a senses